Okay, can everybody hear me out there? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear. Oh, thank you. Good. Yeah, sorry you had to look at me there for a couple minutes. We had our technology guy here helping make sure everything was set up properly. My name is Jason Grusky. I'm the Big Chill. My screen's a little bit, might have to move back here. Maybe off to the side. Okay, so I'm a teacher here in Punxsutawney, and I traded emails with a lot of the teachers out there. And we don't have school today, which is great. We actually call this our midwinter break. We get today and tomorrow off of school. And the reason for that actually is because we're a town of about 5,000 people, and we have 30, maybe 40,000 people who come in for Groundhog Day, and there's not enough room for them to park. So what we do is have them park downtown, and they take school buses and they run a continuous loop around to get people up to Gobbler's Knob where the ceremony is held. And so we can't actually have school because we don't have any buses to use. So it's a nice little thing. I get the day off and I get to be with you guys instead. Real excited to have you. I mean, the enthusiasm is not getting any less for Groundhog Day. We had more signups than ever for this program. I know it made it out there into the cyber world, and other teachers picked up on it and decided to join in. So you're the lucky ones, because I probably had to turn down 200 or 300 schools who had emailed me probably up to 2 weeks ago is when I cut it off. So you guys were the early group. Your teachers got signed up nice and early, and here we are. So a little bit about Groundhog Day. I want to try to speak as quickly as I can, and then we are going to get Punxsy Phil here on the screen, the one and only. There's 15 of us, inner circle guys, we call ourselves, the guys who wear the tuxedos and top hats. I also get to wear this thermometer. My nickname's the Big Chill, and my little character here, he gets to walk around and tell everybody what the temperature is. We all have weather related nicknames, and everything about this ceremony is about the weather. Groundhog Day actually started a long time ago, back in Europe, back in the 1800s. The Germans used to celebrate this. They called it Candlemas Day. And what Groundhog Day really is the middle of winter. It's exactly halfway from the beginning of winter, which is December 21st, and March 21st, which is considered the beginning of spring. So this is the halfway point. Now picture hundreds of years ago when there weren't grocery stores to go to, and you had to get all your food prepared during the spring, summer, and fall, and you had to stockpile it away for you and all your animals to make it through the winter. You might get a little bit nervous if it was a bad winter that you're going to run out of food for yourselves, hay for your horses and cows, corn, that kind of stuff, the stuff to feed the animals. And so they would treat Groundhog Day, and again, back then it was called Candlemas Day, as a way of just, let's kick back and see if we have enough supplies to get through the winter. Let's try to determine whether the second half of winter is going to be better or worse than the first half. So that's where the whole spring versus winter debate started. It was kind of a way of saying, hey, are we ready for this second half of winter if it is indeed a bad winter? And so they used hedgehogs back there. They didn't have groundhogs in Europe. They used hedgehogs to predict the weather. And then when immigrants started to come to America in the 1800s, a lot of those Germans settled in Western Pennsylvania here because we had a lot of coal mining. There was the big coal boom and steel. Pittsburgh was kind of the center of the steel industry. And up in our area, we had an abundance of coal. We're about an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh, by the way. I always like to use my hand here if this is Pennsylvania. Okay, we are right about here. We're in the western part of the state, about halfway up. Okay, Interstate 80 kind of runs right across the top half of the state here, and we're just about a half hour south of I-80 if you are anywhere close to Interstate 80. So it's pretty accessible to get to. But yeah, we had a lot of coal, and a lot of these German immigrants were strong. They were grew up in the country, and they weren't afraid of hard work. And they came to Pennsylvania to work the coal mines, and they brought with them this tradition of Candlemas Day. Well, when they got here, they couldn't find any hedgehogs, right? We don't have those here in Pennsylvania. So they saw the groundhog as being a similar looking animal, a similar acting animal, and quite abundant around here. And so they decided the groundhog must be the best animal to carry on their tradition. So that's how Groundhog Day started. Punxsy Phil has been doing this since 1886. That's right. He's at least 138 years old, if you can believe it. It's amazing. But we say at least 138 because we're not sure how old he was when they first found him. But we are the original Groundhog Day town and celebrants. Our newspaper from 1886 says that the groundhog had not seen its shadow, or did see its shadow actually, and no, did not see its shadow. Sorry, had to think about that for a second. Yeah, and so we've been going strong here in Punxsutawney since 1886. Here's a little fact for you. That was actually the year the Statue of Liberty was introduced. So, you know, think how old that is. So Groundhog Day in Punxsutawney has been going on for a long, long time, and Phil's been here for all of it. Now you might wonder, how does he live so long? Well, Phil gets a magic elixir that he drinks every summer at our Groundhog Day picnic, and that's usually the first weekend in September. And every sip he takes gives him 7 more years of life. Okay, so he's got a lot of years built up. And we kind of equate that to like, well, how old's Santa Claus? How old's the Easter Bunny? How old's the Tooth Fairy? You know, there's these magical beings and animals that we just believe in. You know, it's more fun to believe than not believe. So we believe in it, and we have a lot of fun with it. And Groundhog Day is just a great way to kick back and have a little fun. You know, let the stresses go away. The days are getting a little bit brighter, and the weather's turning a little bit warmer, and we hope that warm weather continues. But yeah, that's what Groundhog Day is about now. It's about having a little fun. We stay up all night long. We're out in the middle of the woods. We're all cold, but yet we're singing and we're dancing and we're laughing, and you know, we're letting all of our cares go away. And it's a perfect holiday because you don't have to buy anybody anything. You know, just buy yourself a nice groundhog hat, throw it on, and go stand out in the woods. So if you ever get a chance to come to Punxsutawney, we highly encourage it. It's a lot of fun. And well, I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk already. So let's get the big star out here. We have Punxsutawney Phil here in the room, and his handler, whose name is AJ DeRoom. He has the daily task of taking care of Phil. And we say Phil is sort of like a cat. Okay, if you have a cat at home, it'll come up on your lap and be nice to you. But if a stranger comes in the house, your cat oftentimes gets a little scared and runs away. That's kind of how Phil acts. He likes to have AJ handling him, and if any of us handle him, he's not so happy. So AJ gets to be the dedicated handler, and here he comes. Come on out, AJ and Punxsy Phil. Let's give a nice cheer. Here he is.
Where can I go to get to?
There he
is. Hard to find the screen. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's like reversed.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if I can. Let's see if we can make that larger for us to see. Not sure. Where'd my tech guy go? View.
Right there.
He's still here. Good.
There we go. Yeah, go to speaker. There we go. It'll take it a second. Anyway, it's good to see all you guys out there. Pretty amazing, everybody that Jason, the Big Chill, has lined up to tune in. I am Phil's handler. They call me his handler here in Punxsutawney. I was originally the rainmaker in the inner circle until I got the handler duties. And with that comes some pretty cool photo opportunities. I get to get my picture taken a lot with Phil and get out there and be around this famous groundhog. So that's pretty cool. Throughout the year, I get to take care of him. I go and visit him and his wife Phyllis in their zoo here in Punxsutawney. I'm essentially their zookeeper. I'm not a zoologist, but maybe I pretend to be one. But Phil and Phyllis live there. It's a licensed zoo. It's in the corner of our local library, and it's like a natural habitat. It's probably about 10 foot by 10 foot. There's 2 little burrows in it, and water and food. And I check on them every day, make sure they're happy, healthy, clean. They have a vet. Their vet is named Dr. Ben, and he checks on them once a year. And any other time that we think he might need to, but really groundhogs are pretty healthy animals, and Phil and Phyllis are pretty safe in their environment. So they're typically happy, healthy, and just require an annual visit for, just for regulations, I suppose. But Phil has been in our care here in Punxsutawney since at least 1886, which makes Phil at least 138 years old. Now, we say at least because when he came into our care, he was already alive, as my two little boys would say, he's already born. And like I said, he's been in our care for that long. Now, the way the tradition started in Punxsutawney, and Big Chill alluded to this, we had German settlers and we had people that were already thinking about Groundhog Day, thinking about the tradition. And there was a group of people, and I always say to Phil, put your earmuffs on, buddy. This is a part of the story he doesn't like too much. But he was the reason for change. There was a group of people in Punxsutawney that would eventually become the top hat wearing Groundhog Club. And they were actually groundhog hunters. They would hunt groundhog every fall, and they would have a great big picnic where they feasted on groundhog. That was the main course. Well, what we like to say is that one year, 1886, and that was the first year that there was ever a report of a groundhog predicting the weather in the world. It was in the Punxsutawney Spirit. And so we know that that year, those hunters were out hunting groundhog, and a particular groundhog presented himself to them. They recognized he was unique, and that's when Punxsutawney Phil became the guest of honor and not the main course in our festivities here in Punxsutawney. The Groundhog Day tradition grew out of that picnic, and we still celebrate it today. It grew and grew and grew over the years, from a handful of guys and girls out hunting groundhogs to 40,000 people from around the world gathering on Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, and millions tuning in around the world to see Phil's prediction. They all know that of all the weather forecasts and all the places you can get the weather, there's only one true weather forecaster in the world, one true prognosticator, and that's this guy, Punxsutawney Phil. So he's a very special groundhog. And now you can tell that he's heard this story many, many times, so I just about put him to sleep. But truthfully, it's actually Phil's hibernation time. So this time of year, groundhogs, both in captivity and in the wild, would like to be hibernating. Now in captivity, they don't hibernate quite as much because their hibernation is dictated by the temperature and the hours of sunlight. Now Phil's zoo is, the temperature is regulated, and the also the daylight is regulated because the lights are on a timer. And it has two big picture windows that one looks in from our local park from outside, and the other one looks in from the children's section of our local library. So you can actually see Phil all year round in there. But also, like I said, he's not subject to the elements outside, so he doesn't go into full hibernation, but he's still thinking about it, as you can see.
Good cuddler.
Yeah. Someone said,
"Is Phil good cuddler?"
Yeah, Phil's a good cuddler to his handler. He's not a good cuddler to everybody. He's still a wild animal, and he doesn't. It takes time and patience to get a good relationship with Phil, where he knows he's comfortable with you and you respect him, is basically what happens.
Yeah, we always like to say, if you do see a groundhog walking around, don't go up and try to pick them up, because if they don't run when they see you, they probably have something wrong with them, perhaps a disease or something. Now, groundhogs generally are very disease-free. They're kind of amazing in the animal world, how they do resist disease, but don't try to pick up a groundhog. They have powerful jaws. They have 4 teeth that are very sharp, and when they bite, they kind of overlap. So not only do they puncture your skin, but they sort of grab on. And yeah, you don't want that. So don't try to grab a groundhog if you see one walking around outside.
Yeah, you'll notice, if you can see Phil smile, let me see if I can get up close here. That reverse is very tricky. So you see his smile. Can you guys see his front teeth? He's got 4 front teeth, 4 big, long front teeth. And he also has some molars that we learned recently. The Groundhog Club, we're always learning. We've been saying that Phil has 4 teeth for years. And it turns out that he actually has 22. I just found out. Are you serious? Oh, yeah. Wow. 22. Yeah.
Oh, hey, you heard it.
Groundhogs have molars. Didn't know that. But we do now. So Phil's front teeth are unique. They're kind of like your fingernails. They keep growing and growing and growing. You have to trim them. So his teeth, he has to chew on things and grind his teeth down to keep them filed down. Otherwise, they would grow completely across his mouth and he wouldn't be able to eat. He actually starved to death if his teeth grew too long. So groundhogs are always chewing and nibbling. They use their mouth almost like we would use our hands. So the first thing you guys want to do is touch something. The first thing Phil does is put it in his mouth. Now, when he's eating, he actually will take his paws and hold food and hold different things like we do with our hands.
What's his favorite thing to chew on?
His favorite thing to chew on besides handlers' hands?
Besides your fingers?
Probably rocks and stones, things that are hard. Like in his zoo, there's some stone, and he likes to chew on that stuff. They have a real instinct to grind their teeth down. So hard things, they'll chew on wood. They're not like a beaver. They're not building things with wood, but they will chew on it.
What does he eat?
What does Phil eat? Well, if anyone out there knows what an herbivore is, that's what Phil is. He eats fruits and vegetables, no meat. So he's a vegetarian. He, in the wild, would feast on grasses and leafy greens that he could get wherever his natural habitat happened to be. Likes, apples when they drop to the ground. But he can climb trees too, but I don't know if he's going to climb up there to actually grab an apple. But yeah, any kind of fruit or vegetable he can get his hands on or paws on, he would go after. In captivity, groundhogs eat what we buy at the grocery store for them as their handlers. So a lot of greens. Kale's kind of a staple of his diet, but his favorite food is actually kind of curious because it's not something that he would get in the wild. Groundhogs are indigenous to North America, and Phil's favorite food and Phyllis's favorite food, his wife in captivity, is bananas. Now, that's not a staple of their diet. It's more of a treat, but it is certainly the first thing they will go to if you put it on their plate. In the wild, he would not get that, but in captivity, they get quite a few. So,
yeah, and in the wild too, farmers often don't like groundhogs at all for a couple of reasons. One, they will eat their crops because they do like all this vegetation. But the other thing too is when they burrow down, they create holes in the pasture. And if a person's cow or horse would step in one of those holes, it could break its leg. And it's really tough for those kinds of animals to overcome an injury like that. And so it's pretty devastating to the animal to break a leg. So farmers tend to hate groundhogs. I don't know if anybody out there lives in a farming area, but you might have the same thought that, oh, my grandfather hates those things, or my family hates those things. Well, you're allowed to hate them, just don't hate this one.
Yeah.
This one's special.
Now, we did talk, and Big Chill talked a little bit about Groundhog Day, but while we have Phil out, we probably should fill you guys in so you know. Maybe you have parents at home or teachers that say, hey, look, it's a groundhog. It's nice to think about, but it's not real, kids, or they make it up. Well, let me tell you what we're here to tell you. It is 100% true. Phil's predictions since 1886 have been 100% correct, every single one of them. We're going to tell you real quick how it happens. So here in Punxsutawney, everyone in the Groundhog Club has a special job. Mine happens to be Phil's handler. The Big Chill does a lot of our public relations with things like this. He's also our secretary, so he records all of our meeting minutes. We meet throughout the year. Groundhog Day in Punxsutawney is a 365-day-a-year planning strategy event, so it really is a big deal here in Punxsutawney. You have to prepare for 40,000 people in a town of 4,500 with 15 volunteers that put the event on, so it's really something. But anyway, everyone has a job. For Groundhog Day and Phil coming out to predict the weather, probably the most important job, I guess, would be the president of the Groundhog Club. Now that our president, and you'll see him, he carries, and if you watch on Groundhog Day, he carries an ancient acacia wood cane. It's a walking cane made of wood. It's been passed down from president to president. And that cane gives our president and anyone who holds it that it works for. Not everyone, it doesn't work for everyone. I hold it, it's just a cane. But when the president picks that up, it gives him the ability to interpret groundhogese. Now, groundhogese is a language that groundhogs speak in, or at least Phil speaks in. And we're told that it's a series of nose wiggles and ear twitches and nods and winks, chirps, teeth clicks and tooth clicks, things like that. But that's what the untrained ear would hear. Now, if you happen to walk in here and pick up that cane and you look at Phil, and instead of hearing and seeing those things, all of a sudden you heard, hey, buddy, get me a peanut butter sandwich or something like that, you would know that you would be the heir apparent to the presidency of the Groundhog Club. You'd be the next president. We'd have to go get you fitted for a top hat. So that's how that cane works. So the president of the Groundhog Club can interpret groundhogese. So everybody from around the world is gathering here on Gobbler's Knob, getting ready for the prediction. And right before sunrise, the Groundhog Club, the guys in the top hats, will make their annual trek down through the crowd and onto the stage where Phil's stump is. And we'll gather around Phil's stump where Phil is located. He's not there year round, but he's there on Groundhog Day. And the president will walk up to the stump and he will, well, I guess first he'll address the crowd and he'll introduce everybody and he'll explain the things I'm explaining to you about the cane and what it allows him to do. He will then take that cane and he'll knock on the doors of the stump 3 times. And when he does that, he'll then direct me to go down and get Phil out of the stump. Now, when I do that, this is important. If you ever come to Groundhog Day, it's good to know. While I'm getting Phil out, the president is going to ask the crowd to help wake Phil up. And the way that they do that is they get everyone to chant, Phil, 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 Phil. So everyone in the crowd will be chanting Phil. I'll get Phil out. I'll hold him up for the entire crowd to see. I'll turn around and I'll place him on top of the stump. We actually lay a red carpet out just like we would for royalty. And Phil gets out on that stump. It's at that point that Phil decides whether or not he's seen his shadow. He then dictates to the president in Groundhogese what his prediction is. And the president will take one of 2 scrolls, 2 predictions that are sitting on top of the stump. And he will hand the proper scroll to the vice president of the Groundhog Club, who will then read it to the masses that have gathered and tuned in. That's the thing where you hear it, where it starts out, hear ye, on this day on Gobbler's Knob. And it goes on and tells you all about what Phil's prediction was. That's how the message gets out. So really, as you now know, we have nothing to do with it. We're simply Phil's messengers. We're his caretakers and messengers. It's Phil and Phil alone that makes his predictions. And so we leave the science and the mystery up to him. And we simply convey his message. So that's what happens on Gobbler's Knob. We hope that you guys all visit us here someday. Maybe some of you have. But yeah, someday come and visit us. It is something to see. When people come to Groundhog Day, they either come and they are here once and they're done, or they come for the rest of their life. And those are what we call the faithful followers, the true believers in Punxsutawney Phil.
Yeah, and all that's going to take place tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is Groundhog Day, February 2nd. And right at sunrise, which is usually around 7:26 a.m., that's Eastern time. So if you're in a different time zone, it might be a little bit earlier for you. But you can tune into the Weather Channel and a lot of public NBC, ABC, CBS, a lot of the
YouTube.
Major networks, YouTube, are going to carry it, and you'll get to see us. I'll be in the background. I'm one of the 15 background characters, but AJ is going to be front and center. He's going to be the one pulling Phil out. And you can say, hey, I know that guy. I just talked to him yesterday. So we hope you join us. We hope you'll tune in. Some great questions coming through. I'm so sorry that we couldn't answer them all. As a teacher, though, I'd encourage you to go out and maybe search for those answers. I saw some like, why is Phil brown? Well, I could say he's related to squirrels, actually, not beavers like a lot of people think. So they kind of do have that squirrel, gray squirrel sort of a mixture of gray and brown, sort of like a lot of us inner circle guys have. And what about Phil? They wanted to know more about Phyllis and how does Phil make it through the winter? So we saw these questions, and we encourage you to go out there and find those answers. You know, this time goes so quickly, and there's so many of you out there this year, and we just love that. And thanks for joining us, but couldn't get to all your questions. So, but yeah, we're
just make sure that if you do get on the internet and look for answers, get it from a trusted source like the Groundhog Club.
Yeah.
Don't trust Wikipedia. Don't trust the science books. The Groundhog Club has the true answers about Punxsutawney Phil.
That's correct. Yeah. So we got a few minutes here. Let's see, what do we got? Happy Groundhog Day, everyone. I'm reading some scrolling questions and messages here. Explain the shadow. Oh yeah, let's explain the shadow.
Okay. Well, you guys this is how I like to explain the shadow. Think about it like Phil's scared of his shadow. So if Phil comes out and sees his shadow, the sun is shining, and like we said, he's scared. So he's going to scurry back in his burrow and hibernate for 6 more weeks. That's how I like to remember it. If he doesn't see his shadow, he's going to stick around because spring's around the corner. He's going to be out there looking for dandelions and things shooting up that he can eat. And maybe he's going to go look for a wife. Maybe they're going to make a family. all kinds of things happen. So he's excited to get out and because he knows spring's around the corner. So that shadow scares him back for 6 more weeks of hibernation, but no shadow, he's staying out and he's ready to party.
Yeah. And traditionally, seeing a shadow is way more common. Predicting 6 more weeks of winter is about 80 or 85% of the time it's happened. So, so let's hope for an early spring. I think we all want that, even though my name's the Big Chill. I even want an early spring. But you know, don't get your hopes up, Phil. It's pretty special when he does. It's only happened, I don't know, 18, 20 times, something like that, in the 137 years we've been doing this. So let's hope for it, but I don't know. We'll see tomorrow. What else? Let's see. Thank you. I see some thank yous. Thank you from Paramus, New Jersey.
Thank you from Massachusetts.
Iowa. Thank you. How? Splashing through so quickly. Is Phil's first soft? I saw that one.
It is kind of soft. It's like a beagle or a Labrador retriever.
Can you?
Yeah, he's got a smooth outer hair or outer coat called guard hair, and then his inner coat is cottony. It's got a cottony inner coat that keeps him warm. So he's like the reverse of us. His warm coat's on the inside, and the thing that keeps him clean and dry is on the outside.
He has very small ears too.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Little
where when he goes
ears.
through his burrow, he wouldn't want ears sticking out because they would brush up against the dirt and the rocks and the roots.
He can actually, his burrow only needs to be as wide as his head. He can squeeze through a hole that size.
And you've often said Phil's like holding a bag of water.
Yeah, think about like a gallon Ziploc bag of water. That's exactly right.
He kind of just flattens out. You can see how he's got. Well, we must have miscounted his teeth, but we can certainly count his claws. He has 4 on the front leg and 5 on the back. His front claws he uses to dig with if he were in the wild, and his back claws are like shovels. He pushes the dirt out with those back feet. What about his tail there? How long?
Oh yeah, you guys talked about him not being a beaver. Well, yeah, Phil just has a little tiny tail like this. Yeah. Like not like a beaver that has a big long flat tail, and not like a squirrel that has a big long tail either. Phil has just a little tiny tail.
Yeah, and he uses that to balance. If you see a groundhog in the wild, oftentimes they are perched up on their back legs using that tail as sort of an extra balance, so they can be looking for predators. Their job in the wild is to stay alive. So, and probably their biggest predator is us, people.
Probably, yeah.
Cars driving by, farmers maybe plowing the field and hitting them. Other than that, foxes, coyotes, some of those kinds of animals will get them. So they're always on the lookout. They stay pretty close to the burrow, and they sit up and they're looking around, and they're usually nibbling on something. They use their little paws to hold the food. And
someone said, how sharp are Phil's claws? They're pretty sharp. If you see, I'm doing pretty good right now, but I usually don't get bit, but I get scratched often. And he doesn't mean to. It's just him trying to get repositioned. His claws are pretty sharp. He can climb trees and dig holes with them. And they're well suited to do that.
Okay, well, we're about out of time, and I want to thank you again. I was a little nervous, I'll be honest. With this such a big crowd and the technology, and you never know what's going to happen. I certainly think that this was a good performance by us, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found something educational. And again, we hope you'll come to Punxsutawney someday and see us live. You know, again, it's just a lot of fun. People, like AJ said, people who come tend to come back because they just get drawn in by the good old country feeling of community and just happiness of the whole event.
Yep. Thank you guys, and happy Groundhog Day.
Happy Groundhog Day, everybody. Okay. And